Alright, so now you could show everyone, see the audience. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I guess I'm gonna go start. Okay. So if you were to come up and ask me how many centimeters are in a mile, without looking it up, I would first tell you two things. Give me some time and give me some pencil and paper, and maybe in a couple minutes I could tell you there is exactly 160,934 centimeters in a mile. And for some that might seem impossible, like how you figured it out, but to others it might be pretty easy. And today I'll teach you all about unit conversions. Hopefully learn a little bit from my speech, and maybe you could use it for math. So today I'm going to teach you about our metric system and the SI metric system, some basic examples, and then how we're going to use this. So hopefully we know about our metric system, like how we measure length with feet and inches, how we measure volume by teaspoons, tablespoons, and cups, and how we measure weight by pounds and ounces. So the SI metric system is just like that, but instead of feet and inches, they use meters. For volume, it's liters, and for weight, it's grams. And there's a big debate going on with implicating that system into the US because our system's kind of dumb in a way and very unnecessary because everyone else uses the SI metric system but us. And once you get into higher divisions of math and science, it's just obsolete. So it's very unnecessary with us having our metric system. And if you're probably not asking, so what's that deal with unit conversions? I would say, well, it's in the name. Unit conversion. So if you were to ask me how many inches are in a foot, 12, and that's basically what it is. And it might seem pretty simple, but the problem can include many steps. There could be a question asking how many inches are in a mile, or it could be way more complex than that. It might ask you to convert to the SI system. So now I'll show you a little bit how to do that. So we'll ask the example before. Instead, we're going to change it to inches. How many inches are in a yard? So you start with 1 yard. Well, actually, let's reword the question. Convert 1 yard into inches. So we'll start with 1 yard. You're going to multiply that by 3 feet and a yard. So now you'll see how we have these set up, numerator, denominator, and you're going to cancel each other out. So yard, yard, and you have feet. You're going to multiply that by 12 inches over 1 foot. You're going to cancel out the feet, and you're left with the unit inches. You multiply that through, and you have 36 inches, which is the correct answer. And it basically goes the same with the SI metric system. And the most important units are deci, which is 1/10 of a meter, centi, which is 1/100th of a meter, and milli, which is 1,000th of a meter, and then kilo, which is 1,000 meters. And we could just do the same thing, and let's give another problem. Let's say how many. There we go. Oh, we have 6 centimeters. How much is that in a kilometer? So the basics would be transferring that kilometer over to a meter and transferring that meter over to a kilometer. So you start off again, 6 centimeters times 1 meter, and then it's, I'm pretty sure it's 100. Yes, 100. So 1 meter over 100 centimeters, because that's the relationship between the two. Multiply it out, cancel out the units, then multiply that by 0.001 kilometer over 1 meter, because again that's the relationship, and you'll get exactly 0.00006 kilometers. And that's how you convert between those two. And now you kind of see the relationship between both the problems. You basically just multiply and cancel out the units, and that's basically it. It's super easy, and depending on the problem, it could kind of get a little bit difficult. Like the ones I just mentioned are kind of easy, but I might ask you to convert between our metric system to the other one, and that's where things get a little bit complicated because it all depends on memorization, and there's a lot of units. Like if they were asked you to convert from inches to centimeter, well, 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. So if you were to ask me to convert 14 inches to a kilometer, I'll first have to go to inches, to centimeters, to centimeters, to meters, meters to kilometers, which is very long. So again, it's all about memorization of relationships between the units. And now you're probably wondering when I'll ever use this. In normal everyday occurrences, probably never. Because let's say if you're baking and you have cups and the recipe calls for liters, you just have your phone to look it up, so it's kind of useless in that sense. But once you get into math, like higher division math, you depend on it a lot, especially for algebra, calculus, pre-cal, and it becomes very important. And once you get into higher level sciences, same thing, chemistry, it's basically the foundation for that. I'm saying every single lab I've had so far needed it. And if you ever were to work in a lab, it's like the number one thing, because you need to accurately do the math right so you don't get anything wrong. And it's a super long, complicated process, and there's times where it gets very, very difficult, because in chemistry, the thing it's used for is just to set up the equation, and you have like this huge long equation, and it requires certain units for it to actually work. So that would you just use it to fill out the equation and set it up. And the process can be very long and complicated, and there's lots of times where we just take up a quarter of the page just to set it up, and the equation would take another half of the page. But it's very satisfying once you go through the whole thing, setting it up, and then finding the answer at the very end. So basically, converting units is a very simple process, but it's very hard due to memorization. And again, like all math, if you make one error, the whole thing's wrong. And it's basically using those relationships and using all the ones you know to find the right answer with the right units. And it's very important for higher level math and science, and especially if you work in a lab. So hopefully now you know how to find how many centimeters are in a mile. Again, it's 160,934 centimeters exactly. It's a simple process, but it can be very difficult. Like all math, just one single mistake could lead to the wrong answer. There's times where I would flip the denominator numerator and it would be wrong, or I just put in the wrong units. And it was one of the first things we learned in chemistry, and throughout the year it was built upon. So you just come back to it, and it was a very strong foundation for all my chemistry, because when things got tough, we just went back to the simplistic stuff, and we just knew once we do this, we could fill out the equation. But like all other things, practice makes perfect, and this is no exception.